Hey, Kenneth Lacovara here. I have a new toy. Literally, a new toy. I'm a grown man. And I have toys. This was sent to me by the nice people at NBC Universal Studios. And it happens to contain a model of a dinosaur that I discovered called Dreadnoughtus. I'm a paleontologist here in the School of Earth and Environment at Rowan University and director of the forthcoming Edelman Fossil Park Museum, which is going to be amazing and will open next year. But I am really excited about this. I discovered Dreadnoughtus in 2005 in the southernmost part of Patagonia, down there, Tierra del Fuego. There it is, Dreadnoughtus. I remember making up this name, hanging it on a list of names on my refrigerator, and Dreadnoughtus was eventually the winner. And it appeared in this summer's Jurassic World Dominion film, and now Mattel has created a model of it that's available at Target, and that is really beautiful art. I know this comes from the movie. Art there too. And so I am excited to see what is inside. I can tell you that, you know, when you're out there in the desert and you're prospecting and you're finding dinosaur bones, the last thing in the world that you expect is that eventually it's going to turn into a toy that thousands, millions of kids will have and play with and hopefully learn from and get excited about science from. So I know I'm excited. So let's see what we have here. Whoa, this is big and heavy. There's the neck of Dreadnoughtus, part of the tail. Here's the main body. Wow, this is big. And some more of the tail. Put that there. Let's see. Well, I like the paint job. That's nice. Of course, we don't know what color. These dinosaurs were, or what patterns they have. There are a few dinosaurs that have been preserved in special ways where maybe we're seeing some of the original coloration and some of the patterns. That can happen with smaller dinosaurs. You're not likely to find something the size of a Dreadnoughtus that is preserved that way. It's not easy for these big creatures to make a fast transition from the biosphere to the geosphere. Here is the very long neck of Dreadnoughtus. The neck in life would be about 40 feet long. So let's see, I think this goes in here like this. Looks like it just snaps in, if I can do it. I put the real one together. I'm not sure I can put this together. There we go. There it is. And then it's a little top heavy without the tail on. Let me get this. The tail of Dreadnoughtus is absolutely massive. We discovered most of the tail. It was articulated, meaning that the bones were still in contact with each other, like in life. Just like the real Dreadnoughtus, it's not easy to move. And here's a little bit more of the tail. Let me see if I can get this on the right way. It's got a little registration mark here. It looks like it goes on this way. Yeah, there it is. All right, so this is a very large dinosaur. It's 5 feet long. It's quite a model. I like the posture that they have it in. Dreadnoughtus should be just about horizontal, should be parallel with the ground. It's not like a brachiosaur with the long forelimbs. The hind limb and the forelimb should be just about the same length. I think these dinosaurs essentially held their bodies parallel to the ground. If you start to lift your neck up like this, there's all kinds of plumbing problems. I mean, how did they not pass out from doing that? They'd have to have special check valves. And we don't know that they had those, but also most of the food is down there. There's not that much food up here. And these creatures clearly had a lifelong obsession with eating. So I imagine that they held their necks low or pretty parallel with the ground. Oh, look, the mouth opens. Oh, that's good. Yeah, so we found a single tooth of Dreadnoughtus. They have tiny teeth, even though they're huge, huge animals the size of a house. They have little teeth. They don't do any chewing in their mouth. Their teeth are just like the rakes, the tines on a garden rake. They just strip the vegetation from the landscape, gulp it down whole, and then their stomach, which might be the size of a horse, is filled with bacteria, and they just let the bacteria do all the work for them. So it's a very efficient way of taking in calories. Also, with this long neck, a Dreadnoughtus can stand in one spot and move that neck from side to side, sweeping out a huge envelope of vegetation, taking in tens of thousands of calories while expending very few. Because if you're an animal this size, what does it really represent? It represents a huge surplus of calories in versus calories out. That surplus is what allows the growth. And then, let's see, does this, yeah. So the tail moves side to side, and I think that's an important feature of Dreadnoughtus. We found almost the entire tail, and under each of the tail vertebrae are a pair of bones. We call them chevrons. Usually they taper down to just a point in these big dinosaurs, but in Dreadnoughtus it starts to taper to a point, and then it flares out into this big spatula shape for muscle attachment. It's the muscles that go from the femur here down to each of those tail bones, the caudofemoralis muscle. And it's strong muscles that they use to essentially wag the tail. So Dreadnoughtus in life would have been about 65 tons and had what I think was essentially a weaponized tail. I don't think it would fight with its neck and head like you may have seen in Prehistoric Planet. The neck is extremely lightly built. Lots of pneumatic bones, meaning that they have been invaded by air-containing bladders, and they would not have very strong bones in here that you would want to fight with. They're strong enough to hold up the neck, but relatively lightweight. This head is probably a little bit too big. They had very tiny heads. A head not much bigger than a horse's head, because at the end of a 40-foot lever, how much weight do you want to put there, right? And so they have small heads that are really just intake fixtures for plants and for air, and a place to put their eyes so they can see. Dreadnoughtus in life would have weighed about 65 tons. That's the mass of 9 T-Rex. That's about 13 bull African elephants. That's about 10 tons heavier than a Boeing 737. How do we know that? Because we were lucky enough to recover both the humerus and the femur. This bone here is longer than me. And we know from modern animals that the minimum shaft circumference of both of these bones corresponds very closely to the weight of an animal. So there are lots of other really big dinosaurs out there, but Dreadnoughtus is the biggest one, for which we have both a humerus and a femur. So it's the most massive dinosaur for which we can confidently calculate a weight, even though there are certainly other dinosaurs in this size range. And that weight is 65 tons. There are other methods of calculating the mass of dinosaurs, but they require a whole lot of guesswork and introduce a lot more uncertainty. The gold standard is really to use those minimum circumference measurements from the limb bones. As far as what we recovered, we had only 2 neck vertebrae, and that's not because of the initial preservation, but the dinosaur came to rest on its left side and was kind of going down a hill. There was a gully or an arroyo here, and it eroded most of this part of the dinosaur. So we have a neck vertebra here and one up in here. Just a little bit of skull, a little bit of premaxilla, and a single tooth. The rest of this skeleton was remarkably complete. We have the humerus, the femur, some foot bones, a lot of the mid back vertebra called the dorsal vertebrae, and we have the hip with the sacral vertebrae inside it, and then we have most of this gorgeous tail section that we have. So if you go from the head back, we have over 70% of the bones of Dreadnoughtus, making it, I think, the most complete of the supermassive dinosaurs. So I'm thrilled with this. I think it looks great. I like the posture. I think they did a really good job on the anatomy. I like that it's huge. I like how they chose that we can move the neck up and down and the tail side to side. The teeth are suitably tiny and numerous, and looks really good. You can read more about Dreadnoughtus in my book, Why Dinosaurs Matter. And you can also see it in Jurassic World and in Prehistoric Planet and in some upcoming television shows as well. Thanks for watching.